Tonight on Y News, Davao City government is set to release a 5 million peso fund for residents affected by Typhoon Lawin. The Manila North Tollways Corporation prepares all major expressways for the influx of motorists and travelers this coming Undas.
President Rodrigo Duterte arrives in Japan for a 3-day official visit. President Rodrigo Duterte implies the possibility of scrapping the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement or EDCA under his term.
The World Meteorological Organization, or WMO, says the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere has already reached a record high. And 100 pairs of jeans donated by celebrities receive a brightly colored makeover for a noble cause.
Y News begins now.
UNTV News and Rescue Command Center. This is Y News with Angelo Castro III, Gerry Alcantara, and Darlene Basingan.
Good evening. Provinces affected by Typhoon Lawin will soon receive financial assistance from the Davao City government. Grace Casin will tell us why.
The local government of Davao City is set to release 5 million pesos calamity fund assistance to be distributed to the provinces severely ravaged by Typhoon Lawin.
Davao City has always been helpful sa ato ang mga silingan na dili lang diri sa Mindanao but sa Visayas and sa Luzon as well. Dati-dati pa sa disasters.
The fund that will come from the calamity fund of the city will be divided among 6 provinces now under state of calamity and according to how many families are affected in a certain area. The major part of the fund will go to Cagayan and Kalinga where 30,000 families are affected by Super Typhoon Lawin.
Diha dayon pinakalit nga ipadala dito ang kopya sa resolution haron matagaan na og approval ang cheque.
Meanwhile, the Davao City Central 911 is prepared for the medical assistance once needed by the province's onslaught by Typhoon Lawin. Grace Casin, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
Typhoon Lawin has left a great impact on the prices of vegetables in Benguet. Deliveries to Metro Manila are also affected. Ray Palayo will tell us why.
The prices of vegetables in Benguet have increased by almost half their previous cost following the onslaught of Typhoon Lawin. Benguet Farmers Marketing Cooperative President Agot Balanes says 1.2 million tons is the average supply of vegetables in Benguet daily but is now down to 900,000 to 1 million tons.
Kung meron man makasurvive, siguro mga 10% from the 100%. So, instead of hoping for the 10%, they'd rather replant, magtatanim uli sila.
Among the affected products are Pechay Baguio, which is at 33 pesos per kilo from 10 to 15 pesos. Broccoli now priced at 90 pesos per kilo from 60 pesos. Chayote now priced at 24 pesos from 8 to 10 pesos. And beans now at 120 pesos per kilo from 65 pesos. Prices of carrots also increased to 60 pesos per kilo from 30 pesos. And labanos to 35 pesos per kilo from 25 pesos. Because of the price increase, even those who deliver vegetables to markets have no choice but to cut their deliveries in half.
Ay, binibili namin dati 15 tons, ganun.
Ngayon po ilan na lang po mabibili niyo?
Baka 7 na lang, 7 tons.
Ngayon medyo bumababa ng konti. Kahapon mataas halos kalahati.
The management of the Benguet Farmers Cooperative is calling for aid from concerned agencies to address the needs of affected farmers in Benguet. Ray Pelayo, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
The Bureau of Customs has seized a shipment of rice coming from China at the port of Manila. Rodrigo Mendoza tells us why.
An estimated 20 million pesos worth of smuggled rice from China has been seized by the Bureau of Customs at the port of Manila. The shipment of 12 container vans arrived in September. Customs officials suspected something amiss with the shipment, which was declared as leatherette.
Pag sa tingin mo, wala tayong demand ng ganun. Bakit leatherette? Ito sobrang dami. So, i-alert mo yon, and then, check mo. Anong na-check natin? Bigas.
Feldon has already ordered the cancellation of the consignee's accreditation and the suspension of the broker's license. They will donate the confiscated rice to the DSWD for distribution to the residents of the areas affected by the recent calamities. Feldon also revealed that they are monitoring 2 ships in the Philippine-Malaysian border which are loaded with smuggled rice. He says the consignees and the owner of the ships have already approached them to legalize their importation.
Yun yung epekto nitong pag-iigpit natin. Itong mga smuggler, sila nagkukusang magsabing nag-smuggle sila. So tinutulungan natin sila ngayon na mag-apply ng importation permit sa NFA.
Meanwhile, the Customs Bureau is also finalizing the new regulations on balikbayan boxes based on the new law passed by the Congress. Rodrigo Mendoza, UNTV News and Rescue, Manila.
The Department of Environment and Natural Resources launches the Indigenous Communities and Conservation Areas Project. Ray Pelayo will tell us why.
The government aims to strengthen its programs that will take care of the indigenous people in the Philippines. Ifugao Lone District Representative Teddy Bagilat says there are around 10 million indigenous people in the country that need the attention of the government.
10% of the population is IP. We have 110 ethno-linguistic tribes all over the Philippines, mula Cordillera hanggang Mindanao.
Around 1.44 million hectares of land that belong to indigenous community are located in protected areas. Through the Philippine Indigenous Communities Conservation Areas Project, IPs will be protected and their culture preserved. Bagilat says expulsion of indigenous people in most cases is related to mining.
Pagkilala lang ng pamahalaan na mayroong mga lupain, karagatan man, kabundukan o kagubatan na ang mas maigi na magtanggol dito ay yung mga katutubo mismo.
The Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act of 1997 gives indigenous people the right to preserve their community in their own way. Ray Pelayo, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
A fellow Filipino was instrumental in tracking the whereabouts of wanted drug personality Kerwin Espinosa Jr. Grace Cassin will tell us why.
On October 8, Sandra Cam's secretary called her up to say she had seen wanted drug lord Kerwin Espinosa Jr. while processing his travel document in Bin Umair Travel Agency in Abu Dhabi. Together with Kerwin is a Filipina nurse.
It so happened na doon sa Hamdan Street, doon sa building na kung saan nandoon si Kerwin, he was staying at 905 and my staff are staying at room 712.
Same building?
Same building.
Based on the travel history that Sandra Cam was able to obtain, Kerwin traveled to Phuket, Thailand from Malaysia on July 3 this year. Then he left Thailand and headed for Abu Dhabi on July 14, where he stayed for 5 days. On July 19, he again left Abu Dhabi and returned to Bangkok, Thailand. After a few days, he flew to Hong Kong on July 23. From Hong Kong, he boarded Etihad Airlines going back to Abu Dhabi on July 31, where police captured him a few days before his visa was about to expire.
He got a friend who is also Visayan, na yun ang nag-process ng kanyang visa.
According to attorney Barney Almazar, a Dubai-based lawyer, if Philippine authorities failed to submit supporting documents for his deportation within 45 days, Abu Dhabi police will release him.
Because hindi nila pwede itong i-hold for more than 45 days. So yun yung proseso ng extradition dito sa UAE.
But the PNP chief assures that they will be able to bring Kerwin to the Philippines in 30 days.
What we have is just yung through the use of the Interpol mechanisms, yung cooperation through Interpol. Yun ang ating yan yung avenue of approach.
Grace Casin, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
The Department of Justice has approved the indictment of 3 suspects in the Davao City bombing incident who were arrested in a checkpoint in Cotabato City last October 4. The DOJ prosecution panel recommended the filing of charges including illegal possession of firearms, ammunitions, and explosives against TJ Macabalang, Wendell Facturan, and Musali Mustafa. Based on the complaint filed by PNP CIDG, a submachine gun, a caliber .45 handgun, various ammunitions, and parts of explosives were recovered from the suspects. A cellular phone with a video of the actual blast in Davao City Night Market on September 2 was also seized from them. The information against the suspects will be filed before the Regional Trial Court in Cotabato City.
Preparations are underway at the Manila North Cemetery ahead of the long holiday weekend. Aiko Miguel tells us why.
The personnel of the Manila North Cemetery have started cleaning the premises of the cemetery. Around 100 portalets are already to be used by people who will be visiting the cemetery next week.
100 po sa DPS plus yung sa amin po na mga volunteer po tayo sa loob para maglinis na. Siguro mga 300 po tao para maglinis lang.
At present, there are over 20 closed-circuit television cameras or CCTV at the Manila North Cemetery to monitor the situation and security. There will also be a help desk to render assistance and entertain queries. The management also reminds the public that starting midnight of October 28 until November 3, all types of vehicles will be prohibited from entering the cemetery. October 28 is also the last day of cleaning. The public is advised against bringing banned objects such as firearms, sharp and fatal objects like knives, screwdrivers, and ice picks, as well as sneaking liquors.
Yung mga basura na na-create o nadala natin sa sementeryo, dapat iuwi natin yon. Kaya wag natin kakalimutan na magdala ng sako o bayong.
Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue, Manila.
The management of Manila North Tollways Corporation assures that the North Luzon Expressway, Subic-Tarlac Expressway, and Cavite Expressway are now ready for the expected influx of motorists and travelers this coming Undas. Joanano will tell us why.
The Manila North Tollways Corporation launched earlier today 8 new lanes on North Luzon Expressway Bocaue Toll Plaza to provide better service on the expected influx of motorists who will travel this Undas season. The project aims to lessen travel time among motorists entering and exiting Manila.
Safe, convenient at napakabilis na biyahe ng mga motorista natin. With additional capacity, definitely mas magiging mabilis ang biyahe natin.
In line with the MNTC's preparation for Undas, they are also re-implementing the Safe Trip Mo Sagot Ko, wherein additional assistance is offered to motorists that pass along NLEX, SCTEX, and Cavitex to ensure that their travel will be safe and convenient. Among the services that the MNTC will provide are putting up additional traffic informatory signs, patrol crews, toll tellers, and lane management team that will be positioned on the road starting on October 28 until November 1.
Yung mga traffic information signs na hindi pangkaraniwan dahil pagkagantong pagkakataon, kailangan yung mga motorista na minsan lang biyahe, nadadagdagan sila ng mga signs na nakikita kung ano yung dapat nilang sundin na patakaran sa NLEX.
All MNTC's emergency medical services have been alerted to respond to any accidents that might happen on the road. Road construction projects have also been suspended from October 27 until November 3 to eliminate traffic obstructions. The MNTC will also provide free towing services to all Class 1 vehicles that might encounter vehicle breakdown, and this will be offered from 6 o'clock in the morning until 6 o'clock in the evening. For other questions and concerns or in case of emergency, the public may contact NLEX, SCTEX, and Cavitex hotline numbers to seek immediate assistance. Joanano, UNTV News and Rescue, Bocaue, Bulacan.
Let's take a look at the traffic situation now on some major roads in Metro Manila. Those traveling along Monumento MacArthur Highway can expect light flow of vehicles on the lanes going to Malinta, Valenzuela, and EDSA Recto Avenue. On EDSA Kamuning, the traffic is light on the lane going to SM North, while the flow of vehicles on the opposite lane is heavy. This is also true on EDSA Guadalupe. There is huge volume of vehicles on both lanes. On España Blooming Street, the traffic is moderate on the lane going to Welcome Rotonda. This is also true on the lane going to UST. And lastly, in Baclaran Rojas Boulevard, the motorists going to Cavite can expect light flow of vehicles on the lane going to Coastal Road, while those going to Manila can expect light to moderate traffic on the opposite lane.
Next in Y News. President Rodrigo Duterte arrives in Japan for his 3-day official visit.
President Rodrigo Duterte implies the possibility of scrapping the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, or EDCA, under his term.
And the Department of Finance proposes to the Senate the removal of value-added tax exemption benefits given to persons with disability and senior citizens.
Y News will be right back. The chairman of the House Committee on Government Enterprises has expressed optimism on the passage of the 2,000 peso across-the-board increase in SSS pensions. Nel Maribuhok will tell us why.
The lower house will soon tackle the proposed 2,000 peso increase in pension of retired Social Security System members. According to the chairman of House Committee on Government Enterprises and Privatization, they are now finalizing the committee report on the SSS pension hike bill.
Ngayong nakaraang linggo, naipasada nila Senator Villar yung 2,000 increase sa pension. So, kami na inintend sa House para makonsolidate nito para mapadala sa Malacanang.
Also, according to Congressman Sacdalan, they have prepared the reforms that safeguard SSS against bankruptcy once the hike is implemented. One of these is the passage of the SSS Rationalization Bill. This bill seeks to strengthen the power of the SSS Board of Trustees.
Ang support naman sa increase para ma-sustain siya, ayun sa rationalization na act para sa SSS. They can be the one who will do the job, no? Yun naman kasi trabaho nila eh. Kung hindi naman sila magiging self-sufficient at aasa sila sa mga subsidy, hindi pwede yun.
In addition, the House Chair also emphasized that the State Insurance Corporation has investments that may be used to sustain the necessary funds.
May mga investment sila abroad, may investment sila sa atin. And that investment is will help them in the funds that they need for the pension.
According to the Solon, the Senate is just awaiting the passage of the House version of the bill for consolidation before it is sent to President Rodrigo Duterte for his approval. January 2016, when former President Benigno Aquino III vetoed the 2,000 pension hike bill. In his veto message, he emphasized the possible bankruptcy of SSS if the bill will be passed. The SSS has only 30 to 40 billion pesos annual investment income compared to 56 billion pesos needed fund to accommodate the 2,000 pesos pension increase. Nel Maribuhok, UNTV News and Rescue, House of Representatives.
The government of the United Kingdom will help the Office of the Ombudsman in training their public investigators and prosecutors. The project, dubbed as Change or Cultivating Holistic Accountability Towards National Growth and Empowerment, seeks to conduct trainings and the development of an operational module that will improve Ombudsman capacity. Ombudsman Conchita Carpio Morales says the project is expected to enhance performance by investing in the most important asset of the Ombudsman, which is human resources. The project will cost 6.7 million pesos and will last for a year. The Department of Finance is proposing to the Senate its tax tax reform packages, which include the removal of value-added tax exemption benefits given to persons with disabilities and senior citizens. Joyce Balancho will tell us why.
The Department of Finance, or DOF, is looking at an additional trillion to be added on the national budget after implementing tax reforms starting 2018. DOF Undersecretary Carl Kendrick Chua proposes packages which include the lowering of income tax, increasing the excise tax on petroleum products, and removing the value-added tax or VAT exemption for persons with disabilities and senior citizens. To still be able to provide aid, DOF explains that necessities like raw food, education, health and medicine will still be VAT exempted.
The savings we can get from removing the exemption from restaurants, from travel, even movies, we can use to expand the old age pension of DSWD. So there's a lot of needs that needs to be done to support them.
During the hearing, Yusek Chua says only the richest senior citizens benefit from VAT exemption, while friends and family members also use senior cards to avail the same benefits. Once tax reform is implemented, the DOF says billions of taxes that will be collected will be used for the benefit of the poor.
So there are many reasons to think that this reform, if used properly, can generate the investment needed to reduce poverty completely by 2040. That is our goal why we are doing the tax reform.
Senior citizens groups have not yet commented on the proposed reforms, while PWD groups expressed disagreements.
Magalang po naming hinihiling sa Senado at sa ating pamahalaan, huwag na pong tanggalin sapagkat yun nga pong aming exemption, hindi pa ako na ipapatupad. IRR, walang tatanggalin na po agad. Huwag naman po sana.
Instead of taking the jeepney or buses, nagtataxi kami. So mas malaki talaga yung gastos.
Committee Chair Senator Sonny Angara says they need to study first the tax reform packages being proposed by the Department of Finance, taking into account, of course, the fact that many benefits and privileges mandated by law are still not yet being given to senior citizens and PWDs.
Sa ngayon, iilan lang sa mga senior citizens ang may pension. So, mahirap naman na tanggalan natin sila ng exemption tapos hindi pa nila natatanggap yung pension. So parang luging-lugi sila, diba?
Joyce Balancho, UNTV News and Rescue, Senate of the Philippines.
A counselor welcomes the idea of establishing a consulate of China in Davao City. Victor Cosare will tell us why.
Among the things discussed during President Rodrigo Duterte's meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping was to put up an additional Chinese diplomatic post in Davao City. For Davao City Councilor Rene Lopez, the putting up of a Chinese consulate in the city is a welcome development.
By having a consulate here, it will greatly facilitate the interaction or the relationship, and it would be a solid gesture of the Chinese government that they are indeed serious in establishing relationships with us.
On the other hand, Councilor Lopez and 4 other local legislators, together with Vice Mayor Paulo Duterte, will be leaving for China for a 5-day visit upon the invitation of the government of Shanghai. The trip aims to strengthen the economic relations of Davao and Shanghai.
Ang presentation namin will really be centered mostly on economic development and investments. In our region, in our city, we are known for our pineapples, our bananas, even pomelos. But I think it will certainly be focusing on this. Even mangoes, we can export.
Lopez is also not discounting the possibility that Davao and Shanghai will forge a sisterhood agreement. The legislator said so far the city has a long-standing agreement with the city of Nanjing in China.
The city of Shanghai has been sending feelers na please visit our city. Maybe we can open up future trade relations.
Just recently, Zamboanga City has forged a sisterhood agreement with Gigang City to open up direct communications between the two cities. This came after President Duterte's visit to China. Victor Cosare, UNTV News and Rescue, Davao City.
President Rodrigo Duterte reveals the possibility of scrapping the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, or EDCA, under his term. Rosalie Cos will tell us why.
Kaya sabi niya, separate. Well, separate, yes. You have the EDCA. Well, forget it. If I stay here long enough, one day that EDCA will, if it's an executive agreement, then I will just...
This was the statement of President Rodrigo Duterte before heading to Japan at noon today. He also said he longs for the day when other nations' military personnel will be out of the country.
I do not want to see any military man of any other nation except the Philippine soldier. I want an independent policy that daw pasunod-sunod ba si kanino.
Meanwhile, President Duterte has decided to keep quiet after U.S. Department of State Assistant Secretary Daniel Russell requested to tone down his rhetoric. But after reading news reports this morning, he was unable to control himself. In the end, the president stood firm that he is not a lapdog of any nation.
You know, before we can move forward, Mr. America, there are things, so many things around. These are historical hurts that would never go away. I am not also a tuta of any country. Mind you, ang pwede lang magtuta sa akin ang Pilipino. Period. Walang iba.
Rosa Licos, UNTV News and Rescue, Pasay City.
Philippine National Police Chief Director General Ronald De La Rosa believes that President Duterte's visit to China will help boost the government's war against illegal drugs. Brian De Paz will tell us why.
PNP Chief Ronald De La Rosa has revealed to media the result of President Rodrigo Duterte's state visit to China with respect to the anti-illegal drugs campaign of PNP. General Bato says the Fujian anti-narcotics operatives will arrive in the country maybe next week to meet with PNP officials concerning the anti-drugs campaign. The PNP chief says China is aware that some Fujian men from Fujian province in China are involved in maintaining shabu laboratories in the Philippines. That is why the Chinese government is willing to help the Philippines in its war against illegal drugs.
Ang cooperation na nasabi nila is, number one na request natin, exchange of intelligence exchange para mabawasan yung supply ng mga CPEX, controlled precursors and essential chemicals in the production of shabu. May dala-dala tayong 114 or 115 boxes ng equipment. Ang masabi ko lang sa inyo doon na equipment na pwede nyo malaman yung best, armored vest.
Meanwhile, the PNP Crime Laboratory has confirmed that out of the 150,000 PNP personnel who took a drug test, 700 tested positive of illegal drugs. PNP Crime Lab Acting Director Aurelio Trampe warns other policemen who have not yet taken a drug test.
Kung meron pang hindi nakapag-undergo ng drug test, we are required and they will be required to conduct 100% drug test to all their personnel, otherwise they will be subject to some disciplinary action.
Brian De Paz, UNTV News and Rescue, Camp Crame.
President Rodrigo Duterte arrives in Japan for an official visit. Rosa Licos tells us why.
President Rodrigo Duterte's three-day official visit to Japan coincides with the 60th anniversary of the Philippines and Japan ties. First in his schedule is meeting with the Filipino community, followed by a separate meeting with Japanese businessmen. Among the topics to be discussed between President Duterte and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe are maritime domain awareness and security in the region. President Duterte also wants to intensify the economic ties of the two countries, especially since Japan is the primary trading partner of the Philippines. He will also ask for Japan's assistance in infrastructure development for public transportation.
To support the Philippines' sustained growth and development, I shall seek to open more avenues of cooperation in key infrastructure development. In particular, we can tap the experience and expertise of Japan in developing high-quality and modern public transportation.
He also has a state-called visit to Japanese Emperor Akihito. President Duterte hopes that the Japanese government will understand the independent foreign policy he is pursuing.
Go to Japan with full trust that we can understand each other, and Japan will understand my position vis-a-vis with the foreign policy that I want to implement. It's just a question of a policy that is really truly Filipino.
Meanwhile, the president was asked which country does he love more, Japan or China.
Between China and Japan, I think I love the Philippines more.
Rosa Licoz, UNTV News and Rescue, Pasay City.
President Rodrigo Duterte has arrived in Japan and meets with the Filipino community. Anthony Bayaton is in Tokyo, Japan to tell us why, live. Go ahead, Anthony.
Good evening, Darlene. A little earlier, President Rodrigo Duterte has just met with the Filipino community here at the Palace Hotel Tokyo. About 1,500 Filipinos have gathered here tonight to see the President. President arrived in Japan at around 5:30 p.m. today for his 3-day official visit. Everyone welcomes and greets the President eagerly. In his speech, the President thanked the Japanese government for accommodating the Filipinos in the country as well as being the biggest official development assistance partner of the Philippines. He says he wants the life of overseas Filipino workers to be comfortable and advises them to be assertive of their rights. He also promises a government free of corruption. The President once again reiterates his stance on anti-illegal drug, does not worry about the statements and allegations of other nations and international organizations against his administration. Tomorrow, the officers of the Japan-Philippine Parliamentarians Friendship will make a courtesy call to the President or to President Duterte, while in the evening he will meet Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe for an expanded bilateral meeting. And that's the latest news here in Tokyo, Japan. Back to you, Darlene.
Thank you, Anthony. And that's Anthony Bayaton reporting live from Tokyo, Japan.
Coming up, the World Meteorological Organization, or WMO, says the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere has already reached a record high.
Rotarians and non-Rotarians from all over the world gather in Japan for an exhibit of food and culture.
And 100 pairs of jeans donated by celebrities go through a brightly colored makeover for a noble cause.
More from Y News after this break. The easterlies are affecting the eastern section of the country. The Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical and Astronomical Services Administration, or PAGASA, says Metro Manila and the rest of the country will have partly cloudy to cloudy skies with isolated rain showers and thunderstorms, mostly in the eastern section. No tropical cyclone is seen to affect the country in the coming days. The UN World Meteorological Organization, or WMO, says global carbon dioxide concentrations have reached a symbolic milestone. Marcia Varol will tell us why.
The World Meteorological Organization, or WMO, says the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere has reached a record high. According to the new WMO's bulletin, the rise was fueled by El Niño, which led to droughts in tropical regions and reduced the capacity of forests and oceans to absorb carbon dioxide. The UN agency says global carbon dioxide levels, which first reached 400 parts per million last year, are likely to stay above that symbolic 400 milestone all year and for generations to come.
Bad news, I would say, that we have exceeded this 400 ppm level of CO2, which was regarded as a critical limit of CO2 concentration, and that's now a permanent thing, independent of the season and independent of the hemisphere.
Last month's average level at the Hawaii monitoring station was 401 parts per million. up from 313 in 1958. Methane and other heat-trapping gases are also spiking. Each year, WMO greenhouse gas bulletins report the latest trends and atmospheric burdens of the most influential, long-lived greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide, as well as a summary of the contributions of the lesser gases.
I think that the key issue here is to go from this kind of political will to concrete action, and that's what we have to do if we want to reach this 1.5 degree level.
Marge Navarro, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
Russia is willing to invest extra work to help the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, or OPEC, stabilize the oil market. Ronald de Guzman tells us why.
Energy ministers from Russia and Qatar, along with OPEC Secretary General, discussed possible joint action to stabilize the oil market, according to Russian Energy Minister Alexander Novak, ahead of OPEC's meeting next month, aiming to cement a deal agreed in Algiers. OPEC Secretary General Mohamed Barkindo says during his remarks on Monday's meeting that Russia and OPEC were committed to stable and predictable markets.
I think both sides are quite satisfied with the outcome of these deliberations today, and we very much appreciate the commitment of Minister Novak to this dialogue and the process, as well as cooperation generally between OPEC and the Russian Federation.
Novak says sharp falls in the price of crude threaten to trigger an oil deficit and unpredictable volatility in prices. Last month in Algiers, OPEC agreed modest output cuts that are due to be set in stone in the coming weeks. The goal is to trim production to a range of 32.50 to 33 million barrels per day. Russia is ramping up its oil output amid weak oil prices, as weak ruble and investments made in previous years are helping its oil sector. Novak has declined to say at which levels Russia would be ready to cap its output, adding that lower-tier officials from OPEC and non-OPEC countries, including Russia, will be working on the terms of a possible deal on October 28 to 29 in Vienna. Ronald de Guzman, UNTV News and Rescue, Moscow, Russia.
Rotarians and non-Rotarians from all over the world gather in Japan for an exhibit of food and culture. Danny Tigzon tells us why.
The Rotary Foundation is celebrating its centennial this year, and to highlight its purpose, Rotary International Japan Chapter has held one of its major projects, the World Food Fury Fiesta 2016. The project in support of its main advocacy, polio eradication in impoverished nations, Afghanistan, Nigeria, and Pakistan that are still experiencing polio endemic. As a result of Rotary's efforts, more than 2.5 billion children have received the oral polio vaccine since Rotary launched its Polio Plus campaign in 1985. Mr. Gary Huang, former president of Rotary International, says Rotary Foundation has been doing a number of services, including health and education, as well as water and sanitation projects, especially in Pakistan, to fully eradicate the remaining 7 cases of polio so that the WHO would soon declare a polio-free Pakistan in 2019.
We have not yet decided which major one we're going to do for next, right after this end polio project. But mostly will be the water or environment project, because the people care and also the world need our service.
Participants and volunteers were so honored to have contributed in this noble endeavor.
This is, I have to say, this is a nice event because we can show our nature and everyone that can show their culture. So this is, I'm very happy for that.
We provide some typical French food, and of course to support the program of this event and all the charity and all this stuff, yeah.
Well, Rotary is all about building goodwill and better friendship with each country. We also are taking donations to end polio. Rotary has led into ending the disease of polio for many generations, and we're just trying to continue that to make sure polio completely stops.
The World Food Fury Fiesta has highlighted more than 50 food vendors and over 100 sponsors from around the world, joining in various kinds of activities. An event for Rotarians and non-Rotarians to get together and collaborate for the success of the project.
I've been encouraging other Rotarians in Japan to do the same, copy our idea, or even the Rotarians in Asian countries, in the Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia. We all get all together and share the concept of doing good to the world.
The Rotary Foundation in Japan is proud to be able to raise significant amount of funds through this project. Indeed, it's another opportunity to support their advocacy of helping those in need. Danny Tixon, UNTV News and Rescue, Japan.
A supposed to be fun-filled adventure ended up in tragedy at Australia's Dreamworld theme park. Kate Alda will tell us why.
Thing flipped, and obviously there were kids on board screaming while their mum was like trapped under, and yeah, I'd rather not talk about what I saw.
4 people were killed on a river rapid ride at Australia's biggest theme park, police said, after a malfunction threw 2 of the victims of the ride and left the other 2 trapped inside. Crowds of rescue workers flocked at the Thunder River Rapid Ride at Dreamworld on the Gold Coast, the main tourist district in Australia's northern state of Queensland.
One of the rides have sustained some sort of malfunction, causing 2 people to be ejected from a ride. Another 2 people were caught inside the ride, 2 males and 2 females. They were assessed by Queensland Ambulance personnel and had all sustained injuries that were incompatible with living.
Dreamworld bills itself as Australia's biggest theme park with more than 50 rides and attractions.
Police said the 4 dead ranged in age from the early 30s to the early 40s. It was not immediately clear if they were locals or tourists. Todd Reid, an inspector with Queensland Police, told media police were investigating what caused the ride to malfunction. Dreamworld CEO Craig Davidson offered condolence to the families of the victim.
We are deeply shocked and saddened by this, and our hearts and our thoughts go to the families involved and to their loved ones.
The Thunder River Rapid Rides whisk the visitors in a circular raft along with fast-moving artificial river, which definitely makes it even more dangerous. Kate Alba, UNTV News and Rescue, Gold Coast, Australia.
Hundreds of people were injured in a blast in northwestern China, while the Qatari government announces for the first time a work-related death in the World Cup Stadium construction site. Ramil Ramal tells us why.
In China, a powerful blast at a prefabricated house in northwestern China on Monday, October 24, killed at least 10 people and injured over 150. The explosion occurred in the early afternoon in Fugu County of Yulin City in Shanxi Province, damaging dozens of buildings including the local hospital. Among the 157 people were injured, 113 of them hospitalized, with 11 in intensive care. Local safety officials are currently conducting an investigation into the cause of the incident. In South Africa, 1 person has died and at least another 122 people have been injured after 2 trains collided in South Africa's Gauteng province. The accident occurred on the Tembisa line east of Johannesburg. The injured have been taken to hospitals in the area. Investigations on the actual cause of the accident is underway.
To investigate 2 cases, a culpable homicide as well as a collision of 2 trains. And we will be getting statements and present it to the prosecutor. If any one of the train drivers are found to be wrong, that is the one who's going to be charged for what happened.
And in Qatar, a Qatar World Cup stadium worker has died in a building site accident last Saturday. It was the first work-related fatality to be announced by organizers of the 2022 soccer tournament that has been criticized about labor conditions in the Gulf nation. The Supreme Committee for Delivery and Legacy, which is tasked with building World Cup sites, did not name the worker who died on Saturday morning at Al Wakra Stadium or provide his nationality. Qatari officials believe the worker was hit by a water truck, but a full investigation is underway to determine the factors which contributed to the death of the worker. Ramil Ramal, UNTV News and Rescue, Doha, Qatar.
Americans defeated the Australians at the 2016 RoboCup Challenge soccer final at Beijing's World Robot Conference. Yoshiko Sata will tell us why.
Australian and US robots clashed on Monday, October 24, at the final match of the RoboCup Challenge in Beijing, a robot soccer match held as part of China's 2016 World Robot Conference. The final victors, the University of Texas at Austin's Austin Villa and the University of New South Wales Runswift, face off on Monday afternoon. The current format for RoboCup matches involves using a Now robot. Programmers are able to install a code in the Now robots that allows them to bet on which of their teammates will reach the ball first.
The robots are telling each other like where they believe the ball is, where they believe that they are on the field, if they've fallen down or not. And then they're also, to decide who goes for the ball, they bid on its position, or they bid on like how likely they are to think that they can get to it fastest.
Monday's match drew a large crowd of spectators.
觉得机器人它那个动作非常灵活，然后我觉得很惊喜。但是可能说，就是说它在技术方面，可能我觉得就是说跟真人的可能还是会有差别。那可能就是未来的机器人的一个发展的空间是很大。
UT Austin made 4 quick scores in the first half, as UNSW was forced to deal with several malfunctioning robots. By the second half, however, UNSW made a strong comeback with scoring 4 additional goals. The final score was 7-3, UT Austin's win. Austin Villa team captain Catty Genter, also a PhD student at UT Austin, said everything went as planned.
Well, we won as planned, but Runswift's a strong team. They had some issues at the beginning of the game, so they didn't play very well the first half, but the second half they came out really strong. They ended up scoring, I believe, 4 goals to our 3 in the second half, but we had a good lead in the first half, which saved us.
UT Austin has previously lost to UNSW at RoboCup matches, although they were the victors at this year's World RoboCup held in Leipzig, Germany. Yoshiko Sata, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
Dr. Alexander Enoch creates a fun-sized robot to foster robotics knowledge among young students. Nina Armilio tells us why.
For inventor Alexander Enoch, Marty the robot is more than a toy. This fun-sized robot that can walk, dance, and play soccer has been designed to be programmable even by young students. Dr. Enoch, who has earned the Royal Academy of Engineering Award for his invention, highlights that school kids can both play and learn with Marty. Young kids like Juliet can program Marty using codes to make him dance.
It's quite fun, and school's also fun, but yeah, it's not every day you get a chance to do robotics.
Older students like Yannick can use more complex coding programs such as Python.
I think it's great being able to learn robotics at basically any stage using one tool. It's really useful.
Marty isn't expensive and consists of only 3 motors, but its creator says the robot's legs give him much pliability.
The legs stay parallel at all times, and we use springs inside the legs to carry some of the weight. So basically Marty can, so this one's currently turned off, the motors are not on, and he can balance on one leg without using any motor power. So that means that it's a lot more energy efficient than a lot of sort of toy robots are. So we've got a forwards and backwards and a side to side, and then this twisting movement. And that's quite different to how a normal robot would walk. It reduces the number of motors, which means it's cheaper to make, it's easier to program, easier to use, and the battery lasts a bit longer.
Dr. Enoch hopes that kids all over the world will soon be dancing with Marty and learn more about robotics. Nina Armilio, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
Over 700 residents of a barangay in Bulacan received medical assistance for the first time from the medical mission rendered by UNTV and members Church of God International. Jun Soria will tell us why.
More than 700 residents of Barangay Sullivan in Baliwag, Bulacan benefited from free medical, optical, and dental services, as well as free laboratory tests rendered by UNTV in partnership with members Church of God International. This is the first time the group has conducted such activity in Barangay Sullivan.
Malaking bagay po, malaking tulong po para sa higit sa lahat sa mga mahihirap. Mapagbigyan natin sila ng serbisyong medical, opo, sa dental. Opo, nagpapasalamat po kami kay Brother Eli Soriana at kay Brother Daniel Rason. UNTV 37 ay bumaba dito sa aming barangay at kami po lubos na nagpapasalamat.
Upon learning about the medical mission, siblings Rachel de Galicia and Rafael Mesticio went to the venue for free medical consultation.
May ubo po siya, 1 linggo na. Buti po medyo nabawasan ng konti. Tapos nalo-low blood pa ako, nagna-90-60. Buti na lang dumating ang UNTV para sa medical mission.
3 days po na sumasakit yung ulo ko, pabalik-balik. Tapos every morning pagigising, masakit po yung malalamunan. So sabi po ni Doc, migraine at saka po stress yung dahilan kung bakit daw po gano'n.
Meanwhile, cousins Maricel Bantay and Janico Malyari had been suffering from recurring fever and toothache, but they could not afford a visit to the dentist. Fortunately, through UNTV's Serbisyong Kasangbahay, their suffering finally ended with a free tooth extraction.
Sumasakit po yung ngipin ko, umiikirot, masakit sa ulo. Nagpapasalamat po ako sa UNTV. May libreng bunot ng ngipin. Sumasakit po yung ulo ko. Nabulok na po yung ngipin ko. Madalas pong umikirot. Mahal po magpabunot ng ngipin. Kaya salamat po Brad Eli Soliano.
Jun Suriao for Serbisyong Kasangbahay.
London-born Jay Ajayi joins an elite group of NFL running backs. Meanwhile, a former FIFA presidential candidate is worried over the pace of change in the international soccer governing body. Aaron Romero tells us why.
Former FIFA presidential candidate Prince Ali bin Al Hussein of Jordan is concerned about the pace of reform in world soccer's governing body and says new president Gianni Infantino has no time to lose in bringing transparency to the organization. Prince Ali says that Infantino should focus on implementing reforms rather than issues such as proposals to expand the World Cup beyond the current 32 teams.
Everybody's looking at FIFA and the direction it's going. Again, it's a critical time. There's no time to lose. And the reality is, putting aside the big ideas like an increase in the World Cup, the real issue is the organization itself and cleaning it up.
Meanwhile, Dominic Thiem wins the second edition of Tiebreak 10s by beating Andy Murray at the Erste Bank Open 500 Vienna. Thiem went unbeaten through the event and took home the winner-take-all prize of $250,000.
The whole thing I think has a great future, and the finals especially, if the both players play for the big prize, it's getting really serious, the tennis, and it was a great match on a good level, I guess.
And London-born player Jay Ajayi joins an elite group of NFL running backs with his second straight 200-yard game as his Miami Dolphins rallied for a comeback win. He pens an incredible chapter, becoming just the fourth player in NFL history to rush for more than 200 yards in consecutive games, leading Miami to a 28-25 upset win over the Buffalo Bills at Hard Rock Stadium. Ajayi, despite that thin resume, joined O.J. Simpson, Earl Campbell, and Ricky Williams as the only NFL players to have consecutive 200-yard games. Aaron Romero, UNTV News and Rescue, New York.
100 pairs of jeans donated by celebrities have had a brightly colored makeover for a noble cause. Jovic Bermas will tell us why.
The 100 stars, including supermodel Elle Macpherson and British designer Victoria Beckham, had their denim hand-painted by American artist Johnny Darr, which have been up for auction online since July to raise money for refugees. Jeans for Refugees went on display in London's Saatchi Gallery on Monday, October 24, the same day as France began clearing the sprawling jungle in Calais, where Darr was volunteering alongside aid workers in the migrant camp.
He watched the refugee crisis unfold very silently, but very much brewing something, you know, wanting to act.
British model Kate Moss and American actress Sharon Stone's jeans have bids over £5,000 so far. Stone was the first celebrity to donate her attire 10 months ago. The money raised by the online auction will go to the International Rescue Committee charity, both a humanitarian aid agency and a refugee resettlement organization based in New York.
It's been overwhelming. The bids are well over £5,000 for some of the jeans, and I think people recognize that they're not just donating for an amazing product that Johnny has worked on, but also the cause that the money is going for.
Attending the exhibition was Sudanese refugee Gamar, who made the journey to the UK from his home country through Libya, across the Mediterranean to Calais jungle. He spent 4 months in the migrant camp before traveling to the UK in the back of a freezer lorry 2 weeks ago.
And they seek a secure and safe life. And now they are moving to nowhere. May God help them.
IRC says half of the money raised will go toward the European and Middle East refugee crisis, while the other half will go to refugees in Africa. Other celebrities who donated their garments included British singer Elton John, Australian actress Olivia Newton-John, British designer Victoria Beckham, and One Direction's Harry Styles. The online auction closes on Sunday, October 30. Jovic Bermas, UNTV News and Rescue, London, United Kingdom.
Those are the reasons behind the news. October 25, 2016. I am Angelo Castro III.
Reasons we delivered to you as they unfold. I'm Gerry Alcantara.
And I'm Darlene Basingan, because we need to know.
We will always ask why. Thank you for watching. Why News.